scary situation. Yeah. And it is really, really quite prevalent. Even as we find out now that Chauvin was only kneeling on the guy's neck, and there were two other officers right behind him kneeling on the guy's upper back and lower back, which, again, it's another thing today that it's just coming onto me now. I completely forgot about this until now. The fact that we saw Minneapolis police do an autopsy where they say that there was no signs of asphyxiation. The Floyd family gets a pretty well-respected outside medical examiner who say that it was asphyxiation, and the biggest impacts were from the other two officers that, by the way, still remain free, are out there. This Floyd family hired well-respected independent medical examiners out there saying today, directly contradicting the line of the Minneapolis Police Department, that those two knees from the other two officers, not just Chauvin, those knees of the free officers were very, very instrumental in helping kill Floyd at the time. And these people are free, and the Minneapolis Police Department, from all indications, because, by the way, Hennepin County did today also rule the death a homicide. So that does seem to back up Floyd's line of thinking quite a bit more, and it clearly was a homicide. It wasn't the guy just dropped dead from underlying medical conditions, or the blatantly bullshit line of the potential intoxicants, which, if you believe that for a second, you are just stupid or really want to cast away the Floyd story in any way that you can, because it's just so BS. But it's proof, again, it's proof that they lied, and it's proof that they'll do it again. So that is something that I think you should carry into the future. I also want to just put that out there as well. But we are going to get to this article with Jack Merkinson. There is a tendency when big things happen to try and complicate them. Very smart people line up to remind us that the world is messy. There are layers and angles and shades of gray we might not think about. That, to create basic moral dichotomies, is Pat and Juvenile. Well, something very big is happening right now. This past week will be in the history books. It will reverberate for who knows how long. Let's hope so. I hope it reverberates for a long time and brings lasting change. And sure enough, we have been awash in attempts to second guess and question and problematize things. You've seen all different conversations. The message of the protest is getting destroyed. People have legitimate grievances, but this is not the way. There are outside agitators instigating things. What is happening is obviously complicated. The country has been cracked wide open and a lot is pouring out, but the way we think about it should not be complicated at all. The situation is actually very simple. America is a very, very, very effed up place. People have had it. They are rising up. The police are terrorizing them in response. The people are right. The police is the enemy. That's it. It takes a staggering amount of state-sponsored violence, physical, mental, spiritual violence, to keep America humming along for white people and rich people. White supremacy is violence. Poverty is violence. Lack of health care is violence. Prisons are violence. Mass surveillance and climate change and ICE. Violence, 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 all along with it, poisonous and very, very violent, as we've seen this weekend, is the police. Americans are used to this. Many people are able to ignore most of the ills that plague us from day to day. Many others are able to reap the benefits those ills provide. Society does not fall apart, but that doesn't mean the violence is not there. Sometimes all of this becomes too much to contain and something breaks. That's where we are now. We are in the midst of a pandemic. 40 million people have lost their jobs since March. Politicians' bosses are tossing workers onto the fire to stoke the engine of capitalism. The pain is being meted out to black people. Being meted out to black people is off the charts because the pandemic, again, is battered black people with hurricane force and left white people relatively unscathed, a reality exacerbated by government indifference and neglect. Black people are at the center of the economic carnage in America. Armed white protesters are having a great time, and black people are getting killed by the police on camera for the crime of existing in the universe. When Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd, something broke. Now we are witnessing an avalanche of rebellion, the breath of death of resistance, not to be confused with the empty liberal kind, on display this week has been awe-inspiring and beautiful. People are coming back day after day, night after night, in the thousands, refusing to be cowed. There are NYPD cars burning all over New York. Protesters took an entire police precinct down. It's incredible, and despite much of the nonsense being thrown around, all the available evidence shows that these are homegrown protests being waged by police by people who are simply tired of the shit they're supposed to take every day. Are there some bad people using what is happening to their own sick ends? Are there people trying to hijack things? Will some of the destruction we are seeing have a negative consequences? Is everything not exactly as one wished it to be without what one wishes it to be? One would wish it to be, without a doubt. This is an explosion, and a lot of things are flying around an explosion, but it does not, at its heart, complicate much of anything. Message is still the same. How could anyone witness what the police are doing in this country right now and come away with the notion that this is a fundamentally complicated moral situation and is beyond understanding? Cops in cities across America are waging an unending campaign of terror against the protesters. Pick any city at random. You'll see cops who are completely out of control, systematically escalating things and then going on a rampage. There's an endless compendium of nationwide police violence over the past few days. It's very, very easy to see on Twitter. Police are attacking elected officials. They're attacking journalists on camera. New York police went after, as I mentioned before, Bill de Blasio's own daughter on Sunday night. The message is clear. Cops are telling us that there are no limits to their power. They are accountable to nobody but themselves, not even the mayor of New York City, and that they will wage war on the people they are supposedly tasked with protecting rather than give up a millimeter of their authority. The police have been enforcers, always have been the enforcers and the beneficiaries of our most reactionary hierarchies. But this week has enforced this essential point that they are a cancer that must be excised if there is anything, there is to be anything but like real peace and justice in the United States. There's no amount of kneeling officers that will ever turn cops into something they are not. There's no reform that'll work. Anyone who clings to the fantasy that you can have justice and police at the same time are deluding themselves. Anyone who looks at the systemic police brutality that is happening and does not fully side with the people standing up to them, yes, even if sometimes things take a turn, if you don't like it, is disgracing themselves. And just want to kind of skip to the conclusion of the episode. I think it's like you're talking about, I think what you're really saying, like you're really looking at here is major structural changes to the way that we police in this country. Like that is what needs to come out of this. Nobody knows where this thing is headed. Everything feels overwhelming and surreal, but we cannot lose sight of the basic moral truth at the center of the past week's event. There's one side fighting for a better society. There is another side trying to crush that fight right there. Perfect, right there. When you sift through all the supposed complications, all the back and forth, the basic truth is what remains. Either you side with the people or you side with the cops. Nothing else matters. That's Jack Morganson in Discourse Blog. I do agree with a lot of the sentiments that's coming on. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard. There's a side that's trying to increase state violence in a racial manner, and there's a side that's fighting against it. Like, you see it happening with your own eyes. The video's there. Like, it's right in front of everybody's faces. And I do want to see, I just, absolutely crazy times. Hopefully everybody's staying safe there, and if they can, getting out and protesting. Most of these protests are peaceful. If you see something violent, just don't be a part of it, obviously. So do the best you can to make the best impact you have beyond those Instagram stories. Thank you so much. And from now, I just do want to say we will be on a little bit of a rare hiatus from Newsflash, but we will not be going away. Tune in to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is where we will be shifting most of our content to in this time. So that link to that will be in the description of this episode, so you can go subscribe and check out some of our visual content that we're going to be doing for the indefinite future here on the Spencer Welsh Radio Network.